First of all, I would really say this was quite an accomplished reading, and I would like to say thank you again for the director and the Noor Theatre Company. And again, thank you, Kim, and everyone. We went a little bit over time, not too much, but I would like to ask Marvin. First, Marvin is a professor of theater, a distinguished professor of theater here. He is actually for over 30 years the editor of Western European stages, now European stages, but one of your strong interests, and also as a leading scholar in the world, is theater from the Arab world. You have an overview of world theater, American theater, European theater, but also Arab theater. Where does Sa'dallah Wannous fit in?
Well, thank you, Frank. I'll be brief because really I have less expertise than anybody else here, either professionally or academically as far as this work is concerned. But let me only say that Wannous is one of the major undiscovered treasures of world literature. He has been for some time now, several decades, generally recognized throughout the Arab world as the leading, if not one of the two or three leading modern Arabic dramatists. And it's quite remarkable that given that fact, he, up until the present, has been virtually unknown in the West and not available except in very small snippets. So the discovery of him and the presenting of him to a wider audience is really long overdue and should be much appreciated by everybody. Having said that very general thing, I guess I would say that the other thing that I would remark about Wannous's work in general, and this work I think in particular, is that not only is it obviously a very rich and complex work in terms of the motivation and interaction of the characters, who are some of the most interestingly textured characters that I know. It really stands out, it seems to me, among modern drama and among modern Arabic drama in particular, because of the richness and intensity and ambiguity of the motivations, particularly in sexual matters. One of the things that to me at least characterizes much of the Arab drama, much more, not only the modern Arab drama, but the Arab drama in general, much more than the Western drama, is that it is a drama that traditionally has focused in significant measure on either open or indirect political messages. It's a very engaged theater. Here, there is political manipulation, but the political manipulation is really subordinated, as it rarely is in the Arab theater, to personal matters, and particularly sexual matters. Somebody asked me a few weeks ago, we're putting together an anthology of essays about homosexual drama in the modern world. What could we use for the Arab theater? Well, this play immediately came to mind, but then I fell into the abyss. This play is really very unusual in its explicitness and the power of its portrayal of sexuality. It's more open about that than a lot of the modern drama is, even in the Western world. And so this is both a very significant play and a very special and unique play. And just as Wannous is a very special author, and in some ways almost a unique author. So
Yeah, and full of surprises.
and full of surprises, right?
So Nada and Robert, you both worked on this. Nada, tell us a bit, how did you collaborate? How was the translation process?
Well, we had experiences in translation of plays before. We translated 2 other plays before, but they were less complex and they were shorter. So we had already built a rapport between us. We already knew how we worked together, and so we decided that we wanted to go to another, more complex play. Now, this play in particular was very challenging because it is rooted in Arab literary heritage. What was probably was what was not very clear here was the mystical component that puts together all the threads of the play, and probably that was the contribution that we tried to do, which was to link the characters and the underlying thoughts that were there to the heritage. They are not as a reader who would know Arabic culture would be able to see these nuances. And I think what Robert was trying to do as well was, I would tell him that these are the tricks that are going on, these are the nuances, and this is how this specific incident or this specific character or this specific term works within the literary heritage. What he would do was try to transform it into what he feels would be equally sensitive to a Western audience. Now, we found a very nice meeting between a Shakespearean and the Sufi kind of experience. And this is what we try to put together, because obviously there is a Shakespearean element there, and there is a mystical Sufi component there. And I think this kind of marriage was created through our collaboration.
Which would also be a wonderful description on a New York theater poster, Sufi, Shakespearean. But Robert, tell us, what were the complexities? What did you wrestle with, you both, for this translation?
Well, the strange sort of diglossic nature of Arabic is such that people speak one language on the street, and most of theater is in a much more rarefied language. There are sort of 2 ways that it became very interesting for us to try to find a register in English that worked. One is that Nada and Sahar, when she directed it, and a number of other people whose Arabic is better than mine, constantly pointed to the fact that Wannous's Fusha, his modern standard or very formal Arabic, feels as if it's inflected by amie, by colloquial. And in fact, Wannous confided to Elias Khoury, the writer, that he would write his plays in amie, in the colloquial, and translate himself into Fusha. And so it has a feel that's much more like dialogue. And so what we tried to do was, instead of anything sounding as if it were a speech, which is a great danger in general, is to make it as dialogic as possible. In other words, people are saying these words to someone, and even if it is rarefied, Shakespeare and others, but principally Shakespeare in the English-speaking world, has taught us that it's possible to actually speak in poetry and yet have it feel like dialogue. So we tried to find a kind of, 19th century English is kind of where we ended up, which is where the play's set in 1880.
Yeah, and I think it does work, and I think, the play was done as the first play in repertoire at the Comédie Française of an Arab playwright, which is, of course, a big milestone for any writer, but especially, of course, for a writer from the Arab world. And so, Sahar, you directed in Beirut.
Right.
And I think we have a couple of clips, I think 2 or 3, which we can show. But tell us, maybe, what is your reaction? You saw the reading here, and then tell us a bit about your work in Beirut?
Well, first of all, thank you for the reading. It was fantastic, really. With the time that you had, you did an excellent job, Kim, really wonderful. So in Beirut, it was Robert's gift to me. I always say that, because for me to direct this play, as you know, I'm still an emerging director, I think of myself. And Robert came to me last year and he said, I'm working on this play with Nada, would you like to direct this play? And I was like, yes, let's do it. And I didn't know then, you know, the complexities and all the troubles that I'm getting myself into. But it worked, and we were able to do it in a short period of time. Actually, we had 2 months of rehearsals, and the main challenge was that, well, 2 months with a cast of 30 people. We're talking about a 2.5-hour play. Most of my cast were students. We got some funds thanks to Robert, who functioned as a producer. We got some funds so we could afford to bring in some professional actors and designers on board. But yeah, it was 2 months, and we performed for only 4 nights, and it was full house. So it was at all levels. I think it was really a very rich experience. One of the things is that Beiruti audiences, for instance, are not used to long plays, like 2 hours. You don't see this in the theaters in Lebanon. And people, we decided at one point, me and Robert, that we're not going to have an intermission, so it was 2 hours, 20 minutes exact. And people would not fudge in the auditorium. Like every night we had 2-3 people leaving the house, but that was it. And I mean, this tells you a lot about the...
Yeah, why don't we look at a couple of clips? They're short, like 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes. Maybe you can talk over a little bit, explain us what we see. We maybe just look over our shoulders. But people were laughing here while Brad is setting this up. But people were laughing. Were these the same laughters? Is it a universal reaction?
Some lines, yes, absolutely. But in some cases in Lebanon, like I remember this very vividly in the scenes with the homosexual scene, the two. Afsa and Abbas scene, when Afsa comes, this scene actually, when Afsa...
You've changed yourself into
Can you hear this?
Because of your love for me. Don't make me cry with Fahad.
So this scene in the auditorium, people will be really laughing at first, like you can tell it's nervous laugh, but then when it gets intense, suddenly the auditorium will transform and people will be silent.
I thought to myself, how could I please my beloved?
Who was the audience? We had done in English the reading. Who was the audience? Who came?
Well, university students, some theater goers in Lebanon, English speaking mainly. We had some journalists, right, Robert?
Here's my gift to you. What is it?
Well, we had 4 shows with 300 people, so it was pretty diverse. But it had to be people who spoke English well enough to.
You can announce it to the entire city now.
Maybe we can go to the next scene, the next clip. But so how?
We can show the end of this.
What has happened to you? I was afraid to desert me after I exposed my soul. As those whose appearance was different from their reality.
You can skip a little bit more to the arm wrestling.
And I'll back you up. Don't cut off what's between us.
He performed in Arab language.
I don't know what I'd do with my life if our relationship
This play in
ended.
particular,
Yeah.
it was actually produced in '96 with Nida Ashar, and we have someone in the auditorium who worked on it actually, the first Arabic production of the play. Lina Abyad and Wina
That's my final
right?
decision. Do not demean yourself even more.
It was in '96.
Was there nothing?
96
But this
with Nida Ashar and Medina Theatre. It was while Wannous was still alive.
And Mazen here, who's the one without his shirt, he spoke with a very southern accent. I'm from the American South, and I went, have you been there? And he went, no, I'm in a kind of punk southern band in Beirut. So he spoke, and then our mufti was from New Zealand. So we had Englishes across the spectrum, which was actually absolutely fascinating. I must say, Lebanese Englishes from the diaspora and different levels. It was very interesting.
But tell us a bit about your work at the university. What do you do there? I know you are a professor there, and tell us a bit about the setup. And
Well, the American University of Beirut is probably the best university in the Arab-speaking world. It's been around since 1860. I teach playwriting, I teach dramatic literature, I teach literature, and I've had a few opportunities to work with people from there. Jawad al-Asadi, we translated a play by him that the New York Theatre Workshop did up at Dartmouth, and Zishan did down at La Mama. And then to work with Sahar here was unlike any experience I've had there. I think suddenly there's a recognition how central theater is in this sort of, in the scheme of things, in the humanities. And it's one of the few institutions that's not very technically oriented, even though there are a lot of pre-med students and engineering students. Liberal arts is considered to have intrinsic value, and there's a recognition that theater's part of that.
Nada should just say a word or two about her institution, which is just down the street and is now working more closely.
Yes, I teach at the Lebanese American University, and I teach literature, Arabic literature, and comparative literature there. And we have a very strong communication arts department, which has also drama studies in it, and two of our professors are here also, Dr. Munat Nio and Dr. Bina Olya. We do try to collaborate together, and our students are very active in that respect. And we also have visitors who come, so LAU is very open to dramatic work. We hosted you also a couple of weeks ago, and you graciously accepted our invitation, gave a wonderful lecture there. So yes, LAU is very active with respect to drama studies. We have a very good theater there. And LAU itself is very open to everything that goes around with respect to drama studies, and internationally as well. It's trying to, rise. It's not AUB yet, but it's trying to become, not second to AUB. So, this is LAU.
Lamis, maybe you tell us a bit about the Noor Theatre, the work you do. And I know how busy you are, how much you all do, but you said we would like to be part of this reading. How do you see this work? How does it speak to you?
I think it's stunning, and I think you guys have done an extraordinary job. And everyone, basically what we did was, these guys came to us and said, would you present this reading? And, Robert, Nada, and Sahar are coming. So I said, yeah, and I grabbed Kim. I asked Kim to direct it, and we assembled this lovely group of actors, and we asked Hadi to come play Aoud. And Frank kept saying, look, we're going to give you 30 minutes. I was like, say what? 30 minutes? Give us 45. And I think we did more than that, because it's so rich, and there are so many wonderful scenes, as Nada was talking about, the Sufi sort of theme that is beautifully thread throughout, which you did not see.
You can see a little bit.
Yes, you can see it here. This is which we had to sort
Maybe tell a bit about the scene.
Go ahead, please.
So this is the scene where Abdallah transforms totally into a Sufi. This is his second actually encounter with the guide, and the guide was also missing, I think, from the reading here today. So this is Abdallah, the husband of Mu'mina. As after he divorces Mu'mina, he becomes a Sufi. He's on his path to becoming illuminated and totally in love with God. And this is a scene at his house with a circle of devotees, and the guide appears. The guide, at point, you get the feeling that the guide is his father. He speaks to him as a father, but then the guide, Nada can speak more about the guide and representation of the guide and Sufi.
But we have the book. You can read it.
Absolutely.
Even get it free. It's $30 normally, which already is a sensational price. But that's good. But please do go on a bit about
we were challenged by this task of presenting only 45 minutes when there are so many beautiful threads and it's so rich, and sort of having to choose and getting some really great feedback from Sahar and Nada and Robert, and going, okay, what do we want to present? How can we do this? So that part was a real challenge, but an exciting one. And for Noor, Nancy is over here. She's the producing artistic director, and Maha's the executive director, and we co-founded the company to present and develop the work of artists of Middle Eastern descent. And so far, our community has really been artists in the diaspora from all over. And so when we get to be invited to participate in work from the Middle East and new translations, it's really exciting for us, because it's a learning process for us. And we get to be surrounded by experts and people who are know this work, and you guys educate us. And so then we can sort of bring our people into it and you know, have that edifying experience. So it's really astonishing, and that's what we want to continue doing. And there are a group of fantastic women here. Raise your hands, y'all. There's a lot of really? That's all? This is good. So a lot of people came in for this wonderful conference of Middle Eastern theater women that Catherine Correa has assembled. So this is what we're trying to do, is establish these connections so that we can be a part of work like this.
As an honest question, how would this play, could that be shown on a New York stage? Would people come?
I think they would. I think it's astonishing. I think the transformation of Al-Masa, I think the themes of homosexuality and revealing who you are, what you guys were talking about in rehearsal about inside and the outside matching. I think there are so many poignant things that happen that are very current, actually, in this work. And so to see it coming from the Middle East, we're going to connect to it. I think one of our actors, Peter, was saying, you know, the moment that Hafsa kills himself after he's revealed himself, well, how much of that bullying and that pain do we see in the sort of, with a lot of gay teenagers right now? There are so many different ways to connect the work, but that's just one of them. And I absolutely think so. I think it would be a great challenge and really interesting for New York audiences.
the gender relationships as the wife is seeking to define herself and to react to this very rigid patriarchal world, that also is something that seems
absolutely. Well, that's the other thing. You know, women sort of really. I mean, as women, female members of this audience, how you connected to Al-Masa and hearing some of the words she spoke about liberating. Did that sort of resonate with you all in some?
So it is only 45 minutes of 2.5-hour plays, but maybe Brad, we put up some light on the audience. You already asked the question, and so maybe we go to you. We're going to give a microphone, not only so we can hear you better, but also it is recorded, and if there are some hands up, I'm just going to count them. This is 1 and 2. Another question 3. And 4, and we start over here with Mario Frati, a playwright.
It's a great, powerful play. Fantastic. I love it. Great characters. So, did President Assad allow this kind of theater?
Yes, of course.
He did?
Yes, it played. It played in Damascus for several nights, and it was not censored, I must add. In Beirut, it was. We made self-censorship. The Mufti was not called the Mufti in Beirut. He was called Sheikh. But in Syria, it played fully in Damascus. However, it played later on in Aleppo. And someone came to the Mufti of Aleppo and said, you know, there is this play, and so is played there. So it was the Mufti who banned it, the Mufti of Aleppo. But no, the Assads did not. It played, you know, in Damascus, and there was no problem there.
That's good news about...
Yeah, which was number 2, was over there, here, over there.
Thank you for the whole presentation. So from a feminist perspective, or at least mine, and from a postmodern perspective, I think it's pretty easy to flow with Al-Masa towards prostitution. What puzzled me was her accepting to go with the Mufti. So I'm wondering what you all would say about, I mean, I know we're getting a short version of the play, but how do you understand that after this has been about the fact that her desire hasn't heard that women's desires are put aside for men's, when he wants it and comes the second time, why does she acquiesce, or why does she even seem to want that also?
Okay. My feeling, she doesn't marry him. I think she just includes him into her sea. She talks about being an expanded sea, and I think it's part of her experience and sort of allowing him to experience his body. This is not about her being owned by him or owning him or marrying him, correct?
Yes.
The way we thought of it when we were doing the character analysis is that she actually helps him to transform.
Yeah.
Like the guide helped the Abdullah, totally connect with God, she is helping him to connect with his inner person. He's never been in touch with himself.
No.
She's serving the person, serving him as a human being, transform and get in touch with love. He's never experienced love. He becomes like a child at the end of the play, really like a child. Very vulnerable. And this for a Mufti to become really vulnerable with And as Lami said, I think you're absolutely correct that she's not about being with him or for him. It's about helping him come out.
Well, one thing that Nada helped me to understand is it's a connection I knew a little bit about from Santa Teresa, is that mystic poetry and Sufism is about the ineffable. And a transformation into something that doesn't exist yet is to attempt to create a language about something that is not there. And she does say to him at that moment, perhaps I mistook my desire for this. She is in the process of finding out what that desire is, and as Sahar's saying, it's a very small part of it that she has the generosity to help others transform. By then, she's clearly the powerful figure, and it's a play which is called, Rituals and Signs of Transformation. It's all about transformation, and Wannous, who was dying of cancer at the time, said he was writing it for his daughter. So it's kind of a gift to, you make it up. You make up the next chapter. So I think it has something to do with ineffability. There's not a language yet for what it is I want to be. Yeah. So it's a play about becoming.
Well, to follow that up, it is not a transformation into something else that is equivalent. It is, and you see this I think it becomes clearer if you factor Abdullah and his conversion into it. It is a letting go. It is it's kind of a via negativa that it's getting rid of all of this other stuff, not to replace it with something else, but just to get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you have also to think of the representation of the Mufti in that sense. I mean, the Mufti, she's helping to transform the ultimate authority. He's the representation of the patriarchal society. She's changing all of this at once.
Mm-hmm. So we had two more. Who was number 3 up there? Okay, wait for the microphone, please.
It's about the word transformation. Why you didn't use metamorphosis? Because it's not a transformation. It's a kind of Almasa became another one, and she made that transformation to become another woman, another human being, or more than that. I like the term metamorphosis, and I am one of the translator of Wannous into French. And we use that word. Instead of transformation, it was metamorphosis.
Did you see the Paris production then?
Yes, we.
Can you tell us a bit about?
Published it in Act Sud.
Yeah, we have the edition up there. But can you tell us a bit how the Paris? I didn't see it. You did not see it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, maybe you could.
I saw it in France at the Comédie Française.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit?
Well, it was interesting. It was exotic. It was big. The director was from Kuwait, yes, and the reception was really interesting from the audience, but there were two kinds of reception. The French liked it more than the Arabs who saw it. They thought that it was more like too much Orientalism into it, the way it was directed.
There's an Oriental realism, yeah.
Yeah.
But
it was,
feel like
in terms of visuality, it was beautiful, so, yeah.
There's one more question behind, or there was another question?
Fortunately, we couldn't afford to be exotic.
Is there one more question? Yeah, okay.
Oh, No, thank you.
So I think we went a bit over time, and we still have a little reception planned here, and I hope you will stay and maybe ask this fabulous group of truly experts and artists and producers. Again, thank you for coming from Beirut, really, for this evening, for Marvin Carlson to have the idea to do the translations, to create the book, to support it, and also to the MacArthur Foundation and Robert, all your work, and also the great Noor Theatre and Kim's production. I thought it was a great evening, a great start. So, and thank you all for coming out and taking time out of your busy life. It's important to have good theater, but it's important to have a really good audience. And we're just, this is wonderful to have you all with us tonight. So thank you all, and I hope you will come back. Thank you.